5 wishes? I thought there were 3. You were offered the divine and omnipotent powers of the universe, and you're complaining that you get more than you expected. Is there a catch? Do the actions of a vagrant from times of yore affect today's future? Maybe. The answer is yes, just never in a way you would expect. I sat there looking at the vaporous man, an eager smile on his face, like a predator. Is there a time limit? Our contract is bound until all wishes are spent. Or death. The thoughts rushed in my mind. Riches, power, world peace. But how can I get it safely? Alright, I decided my first wish. His eyes flared with excitement. I continued on. I wish for complete lasting financial security that's non-corrupt and will not cause me any physical harm. With a snap of his fingers, he just said, "As you wished it, so it will be done." The next 3 days I spent constantly checking my bank account, wondering what could have taken the wish so long until finally I received a phone call.
Hello, may I speak to Mary Evans?
Speaking.
Yes, I'm sorry to inform you that both your brothers have died in an accident. We would have notified you earlier, but the dental records were the only way we could identify the bodies.
Oh God, what happened to them? Thank you for notifying me. Everything was a blur. I didn't understand what was happening until the right puzzle piece finally fell into place. The last will and testaments of my late brothers. To make things short, I now had enough money to make sure my grandchildren were filthy rich. This wasn't part of the deal. Why did you kill them? You asked for complete, lasting financial security that isn't corrupt and did not physically harm you. I fulfilled the wish within your boundaries. What kind of bullshit reason is that? Have you read a single story regarding jinn? Crap. The next of the evening was spent thinking about my next wish. I was stuck with this thing until I died, or spent the wishes. My immediate thought was to rapid fire the next 4, but then I realized how badly that could backfire. Then a genius idea struck me. I've decided upon my second wish. The jinn appeared in front of me expectantly. Yes. I wish that you were bound by the same 3 laws of those written by Isaac Asimov. With another snap, he spoke the words, "It's done." Then strangely, he left through my front door. Several minutes later, the mystical being brought in a man by his neck, and just to spite me, ripped his head right off, just to drop both pieces of the man onto the floor. You see, you almost got me there with that one. However, you may have forgotten that the 3 laws can be heavily distorted. The ending of one life is almost guaranteed to save another in the long run, as long as you pick the right person. And this guy, wow, he's just got a hell of a violent streak. Well, he did. I couldn't help but stand there in utter shock. I stared at the dead body until it started violently convulsing, and I had to jump back as I screamed. Oh Jesus Christ, what the heck? I thought he was dead. Why is he moving? Oh yeah, they just kinda do that when you violently sever the brain from the rest of the body while it's still alive. Pretty funny, right? Get it out of my apartment! It's gonna cost you a wish. Why would it cost a wish? You were the one that brought it here in the first place. Any of my abilities, supernatural otherwise, constitute the cost of a wish. It's basically in the rule book, kid. A rule book would really be useful, honestly. Can I have one? No. Can I wish for one? No. Well, screw you. That'll cost you a wish too, Missy. I closed my eyes and rubbed my aching temples. Okay, fine. I wish you would just please remove the dead body along with its respective head from my domicile. He smiled, didn't even bother snapping his fingers this time. He just picked up the body and head, then proceeded to walk down my hallway. When I looked after where he had gone, I saw that he had walked several apartments down and kicked down the door to my neighbor's apartment. He tossed in both pieces, but not before shouting, "Merry Christmas!" and dramatically disappeared into a plume of dark green mist. The screaming had started long before he even spoke. You know what? Good enough. I'm so excited to see what's next. What is it that you desire? Life everlasting? Genius level intellect? Maybe I should grant you the power to bend the will of the mortals around you. Why is it always so gruesome with you? Because it's funny. Murder? I'm 27,000 years old. I get bored. The more time I spent of ways thinking to outsmart him, the more I realized how much it would backfire. So I decided on my fourth wish. Wonderful. What is it? I wish for you to bring back the people you've killed. A look of genius shock took to his face for about a second until it was replaced with a wicked grin. Party time, was all he said before he snapped his fingers. The air changed, the earth shook, and the program on my TV was replaced by an emergency broadcast. Please no, were the words that escaped my lips before I looked over at the screen to confirm my suspicions. The woman from the screen spoke. That's right, hundreds of thousands of bodies from around the world are rising from their graves. How many people did you kill? I genuinely have no idea. I've made a lot of contracts. Did I just cause the apocalypse? Little bit, yeah. Is there any fixing this? Not really. I mean, there's a couple of ways, but you already know those don't have pretty endings. All I could do was stand there and watch. I saw the screen display massive armies of the undead. Of course, by now I know we can't have anything nice, so all of them were maliciously attacking any living person in sight. The anchor kept talking, but the words became a buzz. Eventually the words slipped out of my mouth. I wish I never made that stupid contract. I didn't say them on purpose. I didn't even mean to think it out loud. It just happened. The sound of a snap broke through the haze, and I was violently catapulted back to the moment I found the trinket that summoned this demon. I may be cursed with the memory, but at least that's all he stuck me with. Don't mess with the supernatural. It's way more trouble than it's worth. I'm not sure how far this thing has spread. If you're reading this, close your windows, shut off any displays you have, and honestly, once you're done here, get the hell off the internet. It's not worth the risk. I'm one of the lucky ones. The day started normal. I had the graveyard shift at the corner store. My shift ended around 7:30 a.m., and I waited a little longer for the next guy to arrive. He didn't show up, so I just left. It's the weekend, so parents with good jobs and all the kids off from school were in the streets, doing their thing. I was walking across the street from an electronics store, one of the classic-looking ones with the TVs in the window. Anyway, the clock hit 8 and all hell broke loose. Suddenly, all the TVs in that store, probably all the TVs across the country, based on what happened, lit up with this image. I can't get that crap out of my head, but I guess that's the point. It was a man, I guess, just staring, but he didn't have a nose, and his eyes and his mouth were a little bigger, just enough to have something be noticeably off. And his smile, it was a sickening wide grin, full of white teeth. He just stood there on the gray background, staring out of all those monitors. I don't know if it was a video or just a picture, but he didn't move. It was only there for a few seconds. I froze in total fear, but other than that, I was fine, unlike those around me. Everyone that saw it started having their faces contort. They yelled in sharp pain before they froze in perfect posture while they grumbled, and their faces rearranged. They all started to look like the guy on the TV. Everyone who saw them turned, and the people who saw those people turned, and so on and so on. Sharp panic screams cut off instantly and gave rise to a dumb froze statue with an ugly alien grin. Goes without saying, anyone driving a car lost control. I dove into an alley and watched the carnage unfold. The ones that turned seemed to try to find people that didn't yet and stare at them. It spread like wildfire. My heart was beating 1,000,000 times a minute and I couldn't control my breath. It was that same fear you feel in a nightmare, the one that takes over your whole body and makes your head feel distant and frozen. I felt in a sort of primal danger. I stopped watching and hid behind a dumpster, eyes shut and hyperventilating. I hid there in the alley for what seemed like ages. I kept hearing distant screams, screeching brakes, rumbling explosions. Pretty sure I heard a plane or two falling out of the sky, and some useless emergency alerts from an unfortunate person's phone. Once I had gathered the courage, or more so the want to progress my nightmare until I hopefully woke up, I peeked out from behind the dumpster I had called my home for the past 10 minutes. Before I even moved, I felt like I was being watched. Down the alley and across the street, there was just one of them, staring straight at me, smiling like an idiot. Its big eyes were relaxed, but contorted from the giant toothy smile plastered on its face. I froze, and my hair rose like a cat. Why wasn't I turning? Was it going to happen soon? We just kept staring at each other, our contest framed by smoking cars and broken spouting water pipes. I knew it knew I was there. I felt that gaze in my soul. It blinked, oddly enough, but that didn't really make it any more friendly looking. Then, it kept blinking, faster and faster and faster. Its face twitched slightly, the smile not affected in the slightest. Then, it twitched more and more and more, and then its body twitched, and then it started grumbling, and its body twitched even more, and then it started screaming, and then it was running at me on all fours, still smiling. I screamed in response and ran like hell. I turned into a back alley behind some apartments and kept running, looking for any sort of place to head into, not afraid to say how afraid I was of this thing. I'm pretty sure I soiled my pants 12 times over knowing this thing was on my tail. I kept hearing it screaming behind me. It sounded angry and only loosely human. I'm pretty sure the tears in my eyes were the reason I didn't see the brick wall I had just cornered myself in front of. I whipped around and fell to the ground, backing up against the wall. That thing was still galloping towards me. It was as if some inhuman thing was controlling a human body it had no idea how to use. By this point, I was sobbing and wailing out loud. It slowed on its approach and stumbled towards me before straightening itself into an erect position. Then, it stared again, hoping to turn me into one of itself. I think I was doing one of those sobbing smiles, the ones where you're obviously not happy, but your mouth at the very least resembles a smile on the surface. I guess that's what saved me. It kinda just turned around and walked off all robotic-like, making sure to get one last stare before turning back down the alley into the main street. I was still there sobbing, wondering what the hell just happened. So that's how all this crap started. I somehow got back to my apartment unscathed and charged my phone back to life while the world fell apart around me. My phone read 8:30 a.m. Only half an hour had passed since that smile came on the screen. I wanted to write this in a hurry as a warning. Last mark on Earth, especially since, knowing the nature of humans, I bet that smile made it onto the internet, accidentally or deliberately. I live in a small city out in the Midwest, so maybe it might take a day or two to really start spreading. Or maybe the government did this all as a test run, and we're in a controlled space. Or maybe I'm stuck in a hellish nightmare. Anyways, get the hell off the internet, or browse carefully. I'm lucky to be immune, I guess. Maybe smiling back at those things will save you if you aren't, but I'd say just avoid seeing them altogether, immune or not. That face haunts me every time I close my eyes. So again, close your windows, shut off any display you have, and get off the internet. You never know when or where you'll see that picture. And if you still happen to encounter one of those things without departing into a nightmare reality, just smile. Sorry if this is confusing. I have a hard time wording things, and often I find that no matter how clear I try to make myself, people end up being unable to understand what I've tried to get across regardless. It's a problem I've had my whole life, and I've not been very social because of it. So I'm sure you can imagine that when I met E for the first time, I'm using E as a placeholder here as to not give away his full name, and he responded to my explanations and monotone descriptions with a look of understanding and appreciation. We got along rather well. I've known E for a while now. We're the same age and have similar interests, and we see each other fairly often. He's from a rather large family, 14 siblings if I remember correctly, and we have a lot to talk about, so we often hang out and chat about, well, nothing really. His company is nice. He did ask me out once, confessing to a crush he'd been sitting on for a while, but I didn't feel the same way, so I turned him down. Since then, we've been a lot closer. I think the pressure of being rejected was what held him back. E is one of the older members of the family. He has 4 older siblings, and he's part of a set of triplets. It can be daunting sometimes, I think, and anyone who knows him knows that he's usually a nervous wreck. He gets super anxious, to the point where normally he can't even step outside due to the paralyzing fear of having to be seen by others, or speak to them. So it came as a pretty big surprise to me when he didn't flinch when I smiled with entirely too many teeth, or didn't laugh as hard as people normally would at his jokes, or when I didn't bother putting on unnecessary expressions for his sake during conversations. Likewise, I think it came as a surprise to him when, after months of observing his pale gray eyes, ever-peeling skin, and his morbid sense of humor regarding death, I could tell that he was dead. Neither of us really minded each other's oddities. I'm giving this context because it's important for what's yet to come. E is dead. Of course, he's a corpse. He can walk and talk and think for himself, obviously. But please make no mistake, he's dead. The rest of his family is the same, all sharing those same lifeless gray eyes. I noticed those eyes on the second eldest sister, I call her S, when I saw her studying with some of her friends. They had been sat around a table with a desk lamp, all participating in what I think was some sort of group project. She had been sat behind them. I noticed the eyes first because the way she had been sat, along with her clothing and her dark hair, almost entirely concealed her in a veil of shadow, excluded from the circle and hidden in the background. Sometime later, I saw her face under some proper lighting. I personally think she bears an uncanny resemblance to Megan Fox in the film Jennifer's Body, but with a subtler alt-gothic style of makeup and clothing to match. But at the time, none of that had been visible. I only saw her when she moved, looked up, and those glassy eyes caught the light of the lamp. They gave an impression of a cat, reflective, something like a mirror. I didn't like it. The suddenness of it made me jump. I feel like I need to preface this by saying that since knowing her better, I can't say that anything is really wrong with S. She's dead, but that's not of importance to me, and the initial startling wasn't anything unusual. I like staying out of groups too, and sitting at the back of a circle of people is something I've done often. It gets too crowded when I'm fully involved. Since meeting her, I've learned that, like her younger brother, she has some anxiety problems too, though they're not nearly as severe. I know that she prefers her face being covered when she's outside. I know she smokes. I know she's strict with herself. I know she has a tendency to lean towards the occult, and that she likes to lay her eyes on strange things, clasping at whatever shadows dance just beyond her reach, just to get a sight of them, just to touch what cannot be seen. S is a lot like me, but unlike me, she just seems entirely too aware of things. She's the type of person I imagine would see something scuttling across the floor in a horror movie, and rather than leaving and finding a place to hide, she would stalk closer for a better look. Sometimes I catch this look on her face as though she's not entirely there. Sometimes I swear it's as though there's a rope around her waist that pulls her towards things, tugging in such a way that she cannot control the urge to feel out the bait or the trap for herself. Sometimes I wonder if she does it purely because she can, rather than for any true understanding of things. I don't know what it is about her that makes her so eerie to me. Her older brother is practically an angel. Her younger siblings are all fine. but she spooks me somehow. I often catch her in the library after dark, talking with a man I can't quite see. He wears a cloak, and sometimes I could swear I almost see the illusion of wings against his back. I'd normally ignore this, because although it's strange and unnerving, it hasn't caused me any problems. But I'm writing this because something has happened recently. At night, when I was trying to sleep, I hear things outside. Weird noises, growling, faint scratching, sniffing. It sounds large and thin, and the sounds usually come from above my window, so it must be tall. I live in a pretty urban area, so the biggest animals around are foxes. I've never seen any deer around here, but whatever it is, it slowly moves around and sniffs and scratches, and I cannot shake the impression that it's searching for a way in. I can't see it through the gap above my curtains, mind you, but when I go to the shops the next day, I see the scratch marks on the brick wall, and I know it wasn't a dream. I've left the lamps on overnight recently when I'm home alone, because that seems to stop it from getting any closer. My theory is that it can't step into the light. Every time this happens, I talk about it with E. He's weirdly calm about it, compared to his usual nerves. I guess he then goes and tells S afterwards, because she shows up for the night with some odd book I assume she got from that cloaked man in the library. She sits there and reads it calmly in the darkness. I don't know how she can make out the words, seeing as she never uses a reading lamp or anything on these occasions. The thing comes back, it sniffs around, and then it recoils with a hacking noise, and its rapid footsteps scatter across the road, away from us. It doesn't come back for the rest of the night. She usually falls asleep after finishing the book, but I always stay awake, just in case it comes back for that night. It never does. Yesterday night, though, she didn't bring a book. I don't know what she brought. It was in a box, and although I couldn't see what was inside, I could hear it faintly rustling about in there. She kept that box on her lap the whole night, and when she moved to turn off the lights, I refused. I wouldn't let her. Something about it felt bad. She tried reassuring me, but after I snapped at her and demanded they stay on, she gave in and went to bed. Again, I stayed up. I'm scared. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what's outside. I don't know what will happen if the lights go out. And I don't know why those things avoid us when she brings those books. Most of all, I can't understand why she'd stop bringing them. It always leaves when she reads. I'm scared of what's in that box. I'm scared of the thing outside. She's nice, but this whole thing just scares me, and she's really creeping me out. I don't know if I'm looking for advice, or just to vent, or what. All I know is that the sun has been down for a while now, and I'm so tired. I don't want to turn off my lamp. There's been a power cut. The lights are off. It's outside again.